other religious traditions, Judaism has a unique history, but in this case, Jewish history defines how Jews live in the present. So I'll argue that exile and redemption comprise core components of the Jewish tradition. Until the founding of the State of Israel, Jews have lived in exile, which means that they have not had a country or a place to call their own. This exile lasted from when the Babylonians took most of the Israelites from their home in 586 BCE, which actually was when the temple was destroyed in Israel, but they were taking them kind of just around that period, which was a long time ago, until the State of Israel was established in 1948. So most Orthodox Jews more literally, and many conservative and Reformed Jews more metaphorically, hope for or continue to await redemption today. So some believe that redemption will come in the form of a literal Messiah or Moshiach, but many Jews engage in tikkun olam, which literally means repair of the world. And this involves mitzvot or commandments, and that could entail lighting Shabbat candles, or it could entail working for social justice in the world. So exile and redemption figure prominently in Jewish history and continue to affect Jewish lives today. So during the time of exile, Jews have been separated from other religious traditions, and but mainly from Christians who predominated in Europe, which was where many Jews lived at that point. Historically, among Christians, Jews have been vilified as the people who supposedly killed Jesus. From about 410 CE until the 13th century. Augustine wrote a law that said that the church should protect Jews, and Augustine is a figure who is significant to early church history, a kind of early church father. So he argued that Jews are both enemies of the church and also witnesses to the church. And in the Christian world, the Christian Bible is the most important text. So Christians at this early period looked to the Bible as informing their everyday life. So the Hebrew Bible, or the Old Testament in this case, states that Jews would be exiled among the nations, which turned out to be true. So Augustine reasoned that that Christians should protect Jews, given that they follow the laws of the Old Testament and therefore serve as witnesses to it. However, in the 13th century, Jesuit and Franciscan friars learned Aramaic and began reading the Talmud, and began to doubt that Jews even followed the Old Testament or the Hebrew Bible at all. And this led to burnings of the Talmud and the professed belief that Christians no longer needed to protect Jews. And so as a result, Jews were more commonly exiled from the nations in which they lived. So one of the most epic events, actually, in Jewish history occurred in Spain in 1492 when Jews were exiled from there. These Jews became known as Sephardim, and they lived around the Mediterranean, in the Middle East, and in the US, and various other places, but mainly in those. So because of the confluence of Christian, Muslim, and Jewish traditions in Spain, many Jews were well-versed in the various languages spoken by these constituencies, as well as astronomy, math, and philosophy. Because several massacres before 1492 destroyed Spanish Jews, a number of them converted to Christianity. And due to the expanding influence of these conversos, the old Christians decided that converted Christians were gaining too much control. So this marked the beginning of racial anti-Semitism, which combined with and added to the prior religious anti-Judaism. And this occurred with actually a law in 1449, the Sentencia Instituto de Toledo, which argued that the conversos had gained too much control and they needed to remain Jews no matter what. So they converted, but they continued to be Jews. So kind of along with this, coming on the tails of Jewish emancipation, they're combined with those two, religious anti-Judaism and racial anti-Semitism, economic anti-Semitism and political anti-Semitism. So economic anti-Semitism is the argument that Jews in socialist countries were capitalists, and Jews in capitalist countries were socialists, right? And so you can't win, right? And then political anti-Semitism was the argument that Jews were really a state within a state, which meant that they were loyal only to other Jews and only to Israel. So just to kind of sum up, Jews are more than just the sum of exiles, right? But rather, in addition to their shared lengthy textual and cultural history, Jews post-Jewish emancipation have constructed several types of responses to their exilic status, and the beginnings of and what eventually became the Reform, Orthodox, and conservative movements. So this theme of exile and redemption pervades all of Jewish discourse and informs Jewish holidays, and powerfully sums up what we might call the Jewish condition.